Hello again, whiskey friends. Welcome to the show, everybody. Today, we're going to do a tasting of the Gate Port PerryPerry. So this is a release from this year in 2022. Actually had a lot of bourbon regret, rye regret about this one, but was able to get my hands on it and finally get to go through a proper tasting with it. So we'll go back to that story in just a moment, break it down, and see if this one lives up to my expectations. Thanks for joining, everybody. Let's get the plastic off of that one. Give this a fresh cork pop. All right, here we go. Okay. Then for today's tasting, we have a new Whiskey Encore glass. Cheers to Cheech. Be sure to check out Whiskey Encore if you haven't checked them out already. Cheech does really cool late night shows. All right. Little taste there, a little tiny more. Perfect. So for this one, so this is a Gate. As I said, it's Port PerryPerry. What that means is that this is a straight MGP rye. It's age stated at a minimum 8 years. Blend was 8 years, and then they finished it off in a tawny port. Now, tawny port finish ryes or port finish ryes in general, are getting really popular, mainly because of a brand you probably know, Midwinter's Night Dram. So this really popularized port finished ryes, and then you see a lot of other people doing it since then. So Old Scout started doing it, and then another one I see all the time is Starlight doing it with their ryes. So there's a lot of port finish ryes on the market. Really, there's probably more port finish ryes than there are port finish bourbons on the market. I know Nulu does some port finish. Of course, you have Angel's Envy. But I feel like the ryes are probably more popular than the bourbons. Well, taking away Angel's Envy, I guess, and the mainstream appeal of that. What excites me about this one, though, is that essentially this is a cast strength version of Midwinter's Night Dram. And if we were to go back in time, right now we're on Act 10 as of 2022 on a Midwinter's Night Dram. I think if you go back to Act 3, maybe it was Act 4, but I'm certain it was Act 3. High West was getting their stuff from MGP. So at one point in time, a Midwinter's Night Dram, its history, its roots, was as an MGP rye finished in port. So, and it was always proofed down to, around 100, 101, something around there. So that's what excites me about this, is that chance to go back, get a cast strength MGP minimum of 8 years, and see how it does in the tawny port. And then on top of that, you have the fact that it's done by Gate, who's done just such a fabulous job with finishing in general. So I'm really excited to get into this. Now I'll let this open up just a little bit longer with one last story. I didn't buy this when it came out, and I had rye regret ever since. I doubled down on buying the Indiana 10-year foundation just because I'm so obsessed with MGP, and hey, a 10-year age statement, and haven't had that in a while. So I ended up buying a backup or two, or the Indiana 10 foundation, but then I didn't get everything else that came out at the exact same time. The PerryPerry, the Barbosa Creek, the Bourbon Down Under. And this was the one of that series. The other ones I got to try over the course of samples and people sharing, but this one's eluded me a little bit. I might have gotten one taste of it once, but not really a proper tasting to really put it in my memory, just enough to fill that FOMO a bit more. But FOMO fulfilled. I found one this past weekend, so now let's get into it. Into the nose, and then we'll go into the taste. Oh, very good. On the rye side of things, I'm getting more of like a eucalyptus rather than a black licorice or dill or anything like that. It's going more towards the eucalyptus and the floral side of it, I guess. There's a powdered sugar element that kind of fills it, and then the port influence is coming off more on the nose, maybe even than the rye. I'm actually having a hard time picking apart the rye components, trying to get past that port. Yeah, and the port just comes across as this nice, dark, rich, dark stone fruit, like a plum. Really, really nice. Yeah, and I'm getting a fried dough action. So now just picture fried dough, the powdered sugar, and a, kind of a plum dates reduction over the top of that. And that's pretty much where I'm going with this. That's about all I'm getting off the nose, though. So not a whole lot of depth there. Let's see what it brings on the palate. Cheers, whiskey friends. Okay. The rye really brings it mid-palate into the finish. Front of the palate, though, I'm going with what I described as the nose, that fried dough, the powdered sugar, with the dark fruit reduction. That's pretty much what it was, but it was pretty flavorful, immediately there. So I liked it like that. And then the rye escalated mid-palate to the finish. Let's see if I get anything else off of mid-palate here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the rye comes in mid-palate. I think what's impressing me most about this, though, it says minimum age of 8. I do wonder what the range of barrels is on this, because there is a heavy oak that comes in mid-palate. The only other oak, that I can think of in a rye that hits me like this might be Michter's 10. It's not that deep, but it is dark, and it kind of lifts the whole experience up from being like a typical rye. It hits these just dark, deep notes on top of that plumminess. There's the plums, figs, dates. Those are the type of fruits that it's bringing at you mid-palate. Gonna go in one more time. Let's see what's on the finish. Oh, yeah. Carries through and escalates to the finish. That date note has really taken over. The oak is there, too. Honestly, the rye notes are starting to subside a bit, compared to that first sip. The fruits and the oak are emerging more and more. It's quite good. This is everything, pretty much everything I wanted it to be. So, going back to the stats on this one, I don't think I covered that off the top. Retail on these is expensive. It's the 4 gates. The 4 gates are typically around $200 retail, and that's what I paid for this one. And then the proof is 112.2. And then if they ever re-release a Port PerryPerry, this was batch 21. Sometimes they re-explore the same finishing and reuse the names. But man, I am very impressed by this. Probably a late entry to consider for one of my favorite ryes of the year. It does stand out to that regard. And I think it's the oak that's making me really elevate it. I wasn't going into this expecting the oak. I've had a lot of 8-year, 9-year ryes. They don't always have that deep oak. So once again, I do wonder what the oldest casks are in this blend. But you're going to have to deal with the price. But I think this is a recommend. If you're looking for a special occasion rye and $200 is a price that you're willing to pay for any given bottle, this is a good one to have. Now, alternatively, there are cheaper port finish ryes out there. Once again, I brought up the Starlight. You're looking at $70-$80 on that one. The Old Scout was, $65, $75. I think some people started jacking the price up a little bit on that one, but $75 is what I saw it for pretty consistently at the beginning of this year. And then you got the midwinter, hopefully $120 if you can find it. You know, if you're lucky enough to hopefully know a friend that goes to the releases. So I was thinking for this tasting to do a comparison, just a quick head-to-head. Always got this opportunity to learn something when you do the head-to-head. The Old Scout's already MGP. It's just younger MGP. And then I've got the midwinter. I feel like the midwinter is king in this exchange. This is kind of a game time decision. I've had these 3 bottles up, like which one am I going to compare it to? But now that it's risen to the level that it's risen to with that oak note as well, I think it's got to go against the king with midwinter. Now this is Act 9. I don't have an Act 10. So everything I say is a comparison to the Act 9. Just do a little bit there. Let's kind of see the difference between these two. And the important thing to note too, the Four Gates Tawny Port. Midwinter though, I don't know if that's Tawny Port. I think it's French oak barrels. But someone correct me in the comments on that one. Now that I'm thinking about that. Yeah, I mean it's just so much brighter. Oh man, the fruit reduction note in the PerryPerry really stands out now. Honestly, the midwinter almost comes off as like a artificial sweetness compared to like that reduction of the PerryPerry. Now, proof rise on these two, you got 98.6 proof versus the 112. So I'll try to take that in consideration when I'm thinking through this. And then you got the price as well. I mean, this is technically cheaper if you can get it retail. Oh, that's very good though. More direct wine influence. That's very interesting. It doesn't necessarily come off as a port to me. It almost comes off as like a Merlot now that we're kind of getting into it. So there's something about these two that are canceling each other out. But the wine influence definitely came across more in the midwinter. And then the rye that comes across is more dipping into the black licorice, but brighter, just over the top, mid-palate. And then that pepper note extends into the finish. But man, the wine influence on that. See, that's the big difference between these two. The PerryPerry kind of felt balanced and dancing around each other. The midwinter right now is just hitting me in the face with the wine influence. I'm gonna go one more sip into the PerryPerry, but PerryPerry's winning this little showdown I've done here. But it's an interesting comparison because they travel different roads. Yeah, going back and forth made me like the PerryPerry even more. Yeah, it's just the richness in that it's a fruit reduction versus being a wine flavor. And then that oak, that's the hard part. The oak is not present on Act 9 like it is on this. I don't know what the ages are on the midwinter these days, but I'd imagine blends of 6 to 8 years, maybe something like that. Head to head though, these two don't really compete. The PerryPerry is the barrel proof version of the midwinter with a bit more age on it. It's the deluxe version. Very good. One last sip of the midwinter to see if I find anything else. Yeah, all that stands out's the wine. So these can't really go head to head. I guess that's what I wanted to find out in the first place. But PerryPerry gets the win here. PerryPerry gets the recommend if you're willing to pay that much of a premium on any given bottle. But thank you for joining for today's tasting. If you do see one of these and this seems to fit your alley, I mean, if you're looking for a special rye, that Four Gate's going to bring it. Thanks for the time, everybody. I'll catch you later, whiskey friends. Have a good one.